We're all in business for a reason. The problem that so many small business owners have is they go in 10 million different directions, not really sure which way to go. Listen as your team of experts, Jennifer Glass and Patricia Reszetylo, go through what you need in your business to really make it stand out and benefit you. Because it's the bottom line that matters. Hello and welcome to another episode of It's the Bottom Line That Matters podcast, where we are dedicated to your success. If this is the first time you are checking us out, thank you so much for listening and watching. If this is a return engagement for you, thank you again for your continued loyalty to our show. On our show today, we have a really great guest who is going to really give us so much about systems. You've heard Patricia and when Daniel was on the show, and I talk about systems so much and why systems are really so key for any business to really be going to that next level. If you don't have systems, there's a lot of things that can definitely start to have significant problems. So Patricia and I are thrilled to welcome Adi Klavit to our show today. But before I bring Adi on, let me tell you a little bit about her. Adi Klavit is the leader and visionary behind Business Success Consulting Group. With more than 30 years of experience as a trained industrial engineer and management consultant, Adi brings a unique understanding of the challenges businesses face today. Adi utilizes her practical know-how to help organizations of any size dramatically improve their efficiency and performance. By leveraging her ability to understand both business processes and people, she helps business owners bring order to their lives and achieve their goals. Adi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Likewise, thank you. So, Adi, I know before Patricia and I get into it, let me ask you, because I said a lot about your background, but that is only what I say. Let me ask you if you can share your story with our listeners and also how you got to where you are right now, being known for systems and everything in that, please.
I'd love to. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you both for having me on the show. It's great to be here. And you gave the correct bio. I started as an industrial engineer. That's how I got into process improvement and process documentation and putting organization into companies. But throughout my career, I worked at several international consulting companies. I work with clients directly. I manage companies. I had two of my own. Definitely had a long experience in working and managing and optimizing businesses. In 2011, I decided to start my own company. And I started as a general business consultant because I was very good at it. I'm a very good strategist and I can help people and I can see things and get things basically really organizing. And then I will tell my clients, you got to have processes and procedures. You got to have processes documented because without it, it's not going to work. How are we going to grow your business without process documentation? We got to document your processes. And it will be yes, yes, yes. But then nothing will happen. So then I ask, well, how about if I do it for you? You go, really? I go like, yeah. Okay. Well, let's do that. Let's really see how we can help you with process documentation. And I did it. And I created the processes and procedures for one client. And they were so happy with it. And they started recommending me to others. And all of a sudden, I have this demand for, hey, can you do it for me? Can you document my processes? Because they are not being done. It's been on my bucket list. And it's been on this list. I know I need to do it and it doesn't get done. So then I realized that there is a niche there and there is a need. And that's where I started really growing my own company and having team members and technical writers, consultants that we work together. And we extract the knowledge from the businesses. We do knowledge transfer. We create the processes and procedures and make sure that they're being followed by everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you. So just that we're clear, when we talk about these processes that you're helping businesses write, a lot of that are those SOPs, standard operating procedures, right?
That's exactly right. Yes.
Okay. Just that way, anyone who's watching or listening kind of understands exactly what we're talking about, that we're not, oh yeah, there's a different process out there. So
no, it's standard operating procedures, but we do it in such a way that is very adjustable and adaptable to the business. So if you're not a corporate type business, it's not necessarily going to look like a corporate SOP, standard operating procedure, but it is still a standard operating procedure, because standard is the quality, the level of quality that everything should adhere to. And that's what we want, is the operating procedure. Like, how do you operate in a standard way that creates consistency and that everyone knows and operates by? So yes.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. Patricia, before I bring you in, really quick, I wanted to throw something out, because we talked about whether you're a corporate type or a smaller business. One of the things for me, I don't have employees. My team is made up of virtual assistants and freelancers. But one of the things that I've done with my own virtual assistants, and I started doing this, is I've been asking them to give me a list of what are the things that I like, how do I like doing it, how do I like having things done, so that way when I need to bring somebody else on, they're already doing the training for me.
Right.
Because it is so much easier. I don't have to start explaining I need it to come out this way and look that way and everything else. It's just I have A, B, and C. And that's what my virtual assistant is boiling it down to, so that it makes it so much easier for me. Is that kind of one of the things that you help businesses with also?
Absolutely. So we create the best practices. It's knowledge transfer. What you just described right now is a knowledge transfer. So we need to know the best practices and also how to do it, why it's being done. The why is so important, because let's say you like a certain thing a certain way, but you have a why behind it. So if you don't explain the why, somebody else can read it and go, well, doesn't look important to me, I'm not going to do it. But if you actually include the reason there, then the probability that it will be duplicated and follow through, it's much higher.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, Patricia, I think that I saw the gears turning there with a couple of questions.
Well, not questions so much, but I had an SOP story that's always kind of fun. My kids are grown up now, but when they were, public school age, they were riding the bus to school. And the lady who was the dispatcher, my God, the woman had been there, I think, 35 years. She knew every kid by name. She knew every bus route. She knew every stop. She knew everything. If you were running late, or if the bus was running late, she would call you. If you were running late or couldn't see the bus, because we had ice on those windows, you could call and say, tell them to honk at me because I can't, or I'm running late or whatever. And she would do it. Well, one year in the middle of the school year, she retired. They sent a letter out that said, watch for the bus. We aren't going to send them back. They aren't going to honk. Which was, it was a bit of a shock for most of the families, because we kind of depended on that.
Sure.
And my front windows iced up and you couldn't see out. And then they changed, you could feel the bus. It had this heavy diesel engine that had a very specific vibration to it. Then they got new buses and you couldn't even feel them. And then the pandemic hit and we didn't have to worry about it anymore. But she was the SOP and she walked out the door. There went all of that operating
all of the
procedure.
knowledge and all of the practice, and there were reasons why she was doing it, and she created all that goodwill, and that you remember it up to now. It's years and years of knowledge and perfecting that process. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So you either have to pass it along, or you have to, set some standard of this is what the performance is going to be, and everybody just hits that, and you don't have all of this extra stuff.
There's nothing wrong with doing the extra stuff, because if we're looking here at entrepreneurs, there's a difference between the school system and entrepreneurs. But when you are creating your own company, when you have your own company, what is your differentiator? Those special things that you do might be a differentiator. And that's one thing that I tell our clients is, when you are a little operation, a mom and pop shop, you could have direct contact with all the clients, and they will they want to deal with you because of certain reasons. Those reasons and their way of doing it might not work as you grow, but you still need to identify what made you who you are and how to still have that and use that even though you are now bigger. So that's where you need those consistent standard operating procedures.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me ask a question as we look at these procedures and as it relates to automation, because a lot of the processes lead us to do a lot of things that can then be automated in terms of taking it off of the direct human involvement or the manual involvement. And I'll just throw out something. Patricia and I noticed it just this morning where there was a little bit of automation, but of course the automation, we had a slight boo-boo.
Well,
Ouchie.
you have to put the tags in the right place in order for the content to go there. And if you don't, then it just doesn't.
Yeah. So
I sent an email through Go High Level and I forgot to put a contact name in a place. And so it said, hey, name in like square brackets. And I was like, oh my God, it's sent.
I've been a recipient of those emails, so I understand.
yeah.
I'm sure we all have. It was just,
Yeah.
I even got it. Hey, Jennifer Glass, when it went out from my system to my entire list as Hey, Jennifer Glass. So, yes, all of these things, they've definitely been interesting as they've gone through. But I guess the question is, though, is that as we look at the SOPs and we look at automation, what kind of things would we be putting into the SOPs to make sure that the automation that we're doing is going to be working the same way? Another thing that I was recently reminded of, and on the day of this recording is the day of the Boston Marathon. And for those that remember, I think it was 8 years ago was the Boston Marathon bombing. And one of the things that I posted that day on social media was you obviously see the companies that did not stop the automation for their social media posts because they were still going out with trivial posts right after a national tragedy. And so when we look at these SOPs, and granted the automation, sometimes you can stop things, sometimes you can't. But how do you, if you're looking at these automation SOPs, how do you kind of manage that process to ensure that something is going to be going out more correctly and or having a way to pull content if you need to because something happened?
Well, I think, Jennifer, it's really allowing for those options in the SOPs, really looking at the SOP and asking yourself, are there any exceptions? Is there anything that can happen that we will need a different SOP? Because you do need an SOP for a disaster, and you need an SOP for changing the automation. You need an SOP for taking over. So you really need to anticipate, either use experience of where things didn't go that quite right, or anticipate what are the problems that can happen and solve them by creating the right procedures and the right steps there.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Patricia, did you have anything you wanted to add there?
yeah, and I don't remember what it was now. It was something with the Boston Marathon and socials, but she covered it. You have to have those things in place for it. And they probably hadn't even considered tragedies. And who knows if the social media person even was aware of the news. But someone is, and you have to have some way of contacting people to make sure, hey, we had a tragedy, freeze the social. Right.
Yeah, but I think it's not just the point of the tragedy. It's the point of Jennifer was that unexpected things can happen. So that's why we do need to have an SOP in order to anticipate things that are when things don't go as usual, because that's
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let me ask you, if we are looking then at how we continue managing the process of creating these SOPs. And again, we're trying to boil down everything that we're looking at. So we're looking at simple things. How does the phone get answered? How do we respond to emails? What is our signature like? Do we have SLA, a service level agreement, for responding to specific kinds of issues? All the way up to more serious SOPs in terms of how are we actually delivering whatever it is that we offer and things along those lines. But I guess the question is, though, is that if we're looking at breaking it down to the really basic level, how do we figure out what to create these SOPs for first? And what would be the ways that we would look at it, short of going to you, Adi, and saying, can you just do it for us?
Sure. So the first thing that you need to look at, it's always about return on investment, whatever your return on investment is. So you need to ask yourself, what area of my company, if I had well-documented processes and procedures, will get me the biggest return on investment? Whatever your return on investment is, whether you want more time, whether you want to train a new employee faster, whether it is that errors are being created and we gotta stop that and fix that. So whatever that is, figure out what is your return on investment and where, if you had well-documented processes and procedures, you'll get the biggest return on investment. So that's always step number one.
Got it. Thank you. So if we look then at where we go from there, like you said, is the return on investment. It is the way that we look at how we start bringing in a little bit more big picture into the process. And again, we said the return on the investment, what can be automated, what can be offloaded, what can be delegated in terms of where it goes from there. So obviously we see, if we look at a chart, we can start seeing this has the highest priority because it's going to make the most value in terms of the ROI or the return on time, whatever it may be, in terms of what we're doing there. And then we have the least of the things where maybe it's not going to have that much of an ROI or even return on time, but it's going to be something that's going to match across the entire company. So things like a email signature. Would you still standardize the email signatures, or would you let people still have their own flavoring, if you will, in that, so that it looks the same or doesn't? How would you look at that?
That is really a branding and preference question in terms of the branding. We don't come into companies and dictate what needs to be standardized and what not. We can make suggestions, we can show the pros and cons. But in terms of something as an email signature, if you want to be on brand, I would suggest yes. I mean, definitely maybe people can have different signatures, but you give them options of what they are and they have to be approved. I mean, that's, if you ask my own personal preference. So it all boils down to what is it that you want to standardize and what you don't.
Thank you. So, Patricia, let me ask you, when you're thinking about your own systems, what are the questions that you would have that maybe Adi would be great to answer? Because if you have those questions, other people probably do too.
I'm thinking. I don't know. I've used ChatGPT to set up a few SOPs here and there. We're working on a thing. And I'm like, well, gee, we should standardize this because this looks like something that I should, and so then it'll spit me something out and I have it stashed somewhere. There should be a question there, but I don't know what it is.
Well, I mean, the question could be, can I have ChatGPT write my SOPs? So it's the same question. If you're a marketing agency, can ChatGPT write my blogs? So AI is a great tool and we use it all the time, but AI should be a tool that you are the one who is driving it. So do you want a vanilla blend SOP created that doesn't have anything to do with your actual practice or your best practices. I
Yeah.
don't think so.
No.
Yes, you can use it in order to create a generic SOP, but my suggestion will be to then download the information for each one of those steps if they align with what you want to be doing, or revise the steps according to what you actually do, and extract the information by asking the right questions of what is it that you are doing and how are you doing it, so the SOP will be completely yours and according to your company and your values and what you value the most. We do it internally. We have SOPs created for each one of our activities in the company. We created it using the method I just described at the beginning. And in terms of where should we get the biggest ROI, let's start there, then start documenting, extracting, optimizing, followed by all. But we can use AI in order to dictate into the AI, so then it spits out what you just dictated in a nice way of writing. But even then, we want to make sure that we write it in our voice. So we always revise it, write it, change it, adapt it to who we are. And that's also the same thing as we do with clients, because you got to have somebody who is an expert to know what to answer, to know what to ask, to look at the answers and make sure that it's not just noise, because you know how it is. You can sit in front of ChatGPT, and again, I use it all the time, but 5 hours later, you're still on the same topic because you had 32 iterations, and now you are so confused because you can't go to the first iteration that, so all of that, it can take time as well. And is it really time well spent? So that is the question, is where is your return on investment? Stay in your lane, do what you're doing that is best, and then let experts extract that, write it, optimize it, and then implement it. So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. That is a good question, because people have that access to these tools now.
Which is great.
Yeah.
So definitely use it, but use it responsibly.
Yes.
So let me ask you, if we're looking at KPIs, the key performance indicators, as they relate to the SOPs, because you mentioned in your company that everything in your company is based right now basically in an SOP. So are you looking at the KPIs to see how they're performing and how you look at possibly improving those procedures? Or is it
100%.
one and done?
100%. And we do it for our clients as well. We connect each procedure to a KPI, and then we monitor it, because that's what will tell you if the process is working or not. If the procedure is being followed, you should get results, and you see it with the KPIs. If we're getting results, great. We can always look at how to improve and make it better. So let's say we are doing the lead intake procedure. We got conversion at 80%, and we want to have conversion at, great, we got to 80%. Let's get conversion now to 90%. Let's dissect this process and see what areas can be strengthened, what areas can be added to in order to us to get to the 90%. But if we are not getting 80% even, we're getting 60%, okay, let's take a look. What is not being followed? It's always a people problem, a process problem, or both. So is it the process not being followed? Is it possible that it's incorrect? What is it? And that's what we look at.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask one other question before we start wrapping it up. And that is, because you mentioned a people problem or a process problem, but I want to remove the people as a large team concern and talk to the solopreneur. So when you are working with the solopreneur, is it still necessary to have those SOPs? And if so, with those SOPs, do they still have the same connection? Because a people problem is going to be me, right? I am the
people problem,
chief bottle, everything in there. So how does that all potentially connect?
That's a very good question. So yes, my opinion, you should have SOPs. You should have your own processes, because then you're going to be more efficient. And in some ways, You will even say more so because it's only you. So you have to make sure you're maximizing your time and you're moving from one thing to another. Now, if you want to expand, you want to delegate, you got to have SOPs. So if you are a solopreneur looking at expansion, at scaling and becoming bigger, you absolutely want to have those SOPs because that will allow you to delegate correctly. And in terms of people problem, process problem, or both, it's still a people problem if you're not following it. And then it's you, and you have to use the self-discipline in order to actually use it as opposed to disciplining somebody else.
Right. Thank you. So, Adi, as we wrap up our conversation, I wanted to ask you, because I know that you have your own podcast too. Can you tell us a little bit about your show?
Yeah, so my show is called The System Simplified. And Jennifer, you've been a guest on the podcast, so thank you for that. It was a great episode.
Thank you.
I started it during the pandemic years ago. I think we're over 500 episodes. I interview entrepreneurs that have made it because they're scaling, because they use processes. I interview thought leaders, trusted advisors that work with entrepreneurs. It's very interesting conversations, and I'm sure that anyone that listens to it can learn something new by listening to it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. For people that are interested in connecting with you, what would be the best way for them to connect?
The best way is LinkedIn. So it's Adi Klavit in LinkedIn, ADI-KLEVIT. You can also reach me at 503-662-2911. You can text, you can call, and email, always good, adi@bizsuccesscg.com. That's B-I-Z, success spelled out, CG for consultinggroup.com. Our website, bizsuccesscg.com, has a lot of free resources there. And if you want to download my ebook, go to www.successreplicated.com, and you will be able to download the ebook and get going on your journey on how to document and implement your processes and procedures.
Thank you so much. And we'll include all that information in the description so that you can get connected with Adi as well. So, Adi, let me ask you one other question. And that is, if you were going to give a 30-second, if you take this only from our entire conversation, what would that 30-second piece be?
Change the mindset that processes are not important to processes are important. Change it from processes can stifle my creativity to processes can enhance my creativity and allow me to have the freedom as a business owner. I think if you change that mindset, you will be able to then follow with actions that will give you the freedom that you want.
Thank you so much. And with that, it's really important, again, as you've heard Adi, Patricia, and I talking today on the show, that systems are really important. This is not the first time that you've heard us talk about systems and why it is so important. Because as we've said several times today alone, systems really have the power to move your business in the right direction, and the lack thereof can hold your business back the same way. So when you're thinking about what it is that you are doing, as Adi suggested, look at the return on the investment, or as I was saying, the return on time as well, in terms of what it is that you are looking to ultimately do. And if you can find ways that you can start improving the time and the investment that you have with these tasks, the more likely it is you are going to continue moving your business forward. On that note, Adi, thank you again so much for being our guest.
And this thank you both.
Thank you. And this has been another episode of It's the Bottom Line That Matters. And until next time, here is to your success. Thanks so much for listening to another amazing episode of It's the Bottom Line That Matters podcast. We're all about helping the small business community grow and reaching as many people as we can. And the algorithms on the podcast programs love reviews. So if you loved what you just heard, consider leaving us a review. And even if you don't, I'm sure you already did, but consider sharing our episodes and our podcast with your friends and colleagues. Sharing is caring, and here's to your success. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful day.
It's the bottom line that matters.